chambers of Congress. The party faces the prospect of a potentially chaotic primary season in 2026 that could hamper its efforts to retake the House. Adding to the uncertainty, there's more drama inside the Democratic National Committee, which has set a June vote on whether to redo activist David Hogg's election as vice chair. And amid it all, a controversial new book about President Biden has the party looking in the rearview mirror, raising questions about his decision to run for re-election and what the Democratic Party needs to learn from 2024 to move forward. Joining us now is the former chair of the Democratic National Committee, Jamie Harrison. Mr. Chairman, welcome back to the show. So just what do you make of the infighting within the DNC right now between David Hogg, the vice chair, and the rest of the party?
Yeah. Well, listen, I have a great respect for David and the work that he's doing to get good candidates and younger people involved in the Democratic Party. I do believe that he's uber talented. But what's really, really important, and I've had conversations with David and conversations with folks in the DNC, is to understand that you're a fiduciary. As an officer of the DNC, you're a fiduciary of the Democratic Party. You have a responsibility to the party. And so, my grandma often used to say, family business you keep in the house. You don't air your family business outside. And I think it's really, really important to come back inside and work out these issues and these things to move forward, because none of us going on all of these media shows and all these things, talking about these things aren't helping the Democratic Party set up to win in 2026. It's not helping the Democratic Party to raise more money. It's not helping the Democratic Party to recruit more candidates. And so if it's not helping, then you got to stop doing those types of things. And so I don't think anybody disagrees with David that primaries aren't always a bad thing, right? Nobody disagrees on that. And nobody disagrees that maybe it's time for some people to go. But as an officer of the DNC, you have a certain responsibility, and you can't let those two things come into conflict. Mm.
Jamie, I just want to push back a little bit on something you said about keeping it within the party. Isn't part of the problem with Biden's failed re-election and the process that went down with that, where voters frankly felt that elites had let them down? Isn't it time for change and to shake things up?
Well, I'm going to push back on that as well. If folks wanted to primary Joe Biden, there was nobody that told them that they couldn't. And don't get
Dean
it back
Phillips
on now.
was widely criticized. The one person who did became a pariah, so it wasn't exactly an open season.
Well, because nobody wanted Dean Phillips. Right?
Nobody voted for him.
Just because you joined it and doesn't mean that they were celebrating for Dean Phillips. Now, if Gretchen Whitmer or Shapiro or any of those other folks wanted to get in, they could have gotten in, right? They could have tested the waters. They could have pushed back, but they decided not to get in. And in the end of the day, Joe Biden did go against Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson. And in the end of the day, millions of people, went to the polls and they voted for Joe Biden. And so one of the things that I push back on this book and some of these other notions about Joe Biden, when Joe Biden ended up winning the primary and getting all of those primary votes, there was nobody, including the DNC chair or anybody else legally, that could have taken away the fact that he was the nominee of the party other than Joe Biden, right? And so I think it is a lot of sort of looking back with rose-colored glasses to say, well, we could have done this, you could have done that, you could have done that. Well, if nobody of substance, nobody of gravitas gets into the contest, a la, Jimmy Carter, Ted Kennedy, right? That was a whole different situation. But Dean Phillips was not a Ted Kennedy. Right. And so therefore, you couldn't have that type of contest. And we did not have that type of contest.
Jamie, you brought up the book Original Sin. We had on Alex Thompson yesterday. In the book, it says that you had an interaction with President Biden where he didn't recognize you. And you said to some other Democrat, that wasn't good. Right. I've heard that you said this didn't happen. So did it happen or not?
It was a bold-faced lie. I don't know where the hell they got that from. And I've told that to Alex. that is a bold-faced lie. And it's really, excuse my language, pissing me off that they continue to push it and say it. I have told them, unless I need to get a cognitive test, and I just totally forget all these things. But I'm 49, but maybe I'll go to my doctor and check. That did not happen, and for me, it provides me all of what I need to know about what this book is about. I've seen similar with Jake Sullivan saying that the situation that they talk about him did not happen. I know in terms of the Clooney situation. I mean, there's some things that I can also share about that Clooney situation. That part where they show Barack Obama holding on to Joe Biden's arm and leading him off. Right in front of us, my wife and I went to my wife when I saw that or heard about that in the book, and I said, wasn't that where those three young white men who was standing up yelling at Joe Biden about Palestine? They were protesting right up front, and he was trying to listen to what they were saying, and Obama grabbed his arm and pulled him away. My wife said, yeah, I remember that. We were sitting right there in the audience. But again, you can make and spin things to the theory of your particular case. But that book lost all credibility when they put my name in it for something that did not happen. And then they continue to double down on that particular story.
Well, specifically, what are you objecting to about the George Clooney passage? And because that's a really long passage. That was the excerpt in the New Yorker.
Well, at least I have not read the book, and I will not be spending my good hard-earned money on that book. But nonetheless, from some of the reporting that I've seen about it, one of the finance staff that was in the back with Joe Biden when that particular happened talked about the process by which that happens. And you all have all been with presidents, and you know that when you come in, that the president is announced by staff. The president is announced by staff and staff that he's coming in, and then every individual, including me, including the governors the president has known for forever, including U.S. senators, is announced to the president and usually the first lady about them coming in. You do the same thing with the vice president. Mr. President, Jamie Harrison, the chair of the DNC. Of course, the president knows who I am, but you still do it. And it's been done not for Democratic presidents, but also for Republican presidents. It's part of the protocol. And so, listen, I just think it's a bunch of hooey. Again, people want to do the things or put things up there to prove their theory of the case, and they can do what they want. But hell, just don't lie about me. You write whatever you want, but don't put my name in the stuff that I know is not right.
Jamie said, keep my name out your mouth.
All right,
exactly.
In like 20 seconds.
Yeah, we don't even have 20 seconds. I was going to ask the question, but the thing is in the prompt. But go ahead.
One of the things that I think folks have been heartened by, Democrats, is that you start to see some of these wins. You had this win, the mayoral race in Omaha, Nebraska. You're starting to see things break through that haven't before. How do you think the Democratic Party, as they move forward into the midterms, it feels like there's plenty of openings for them to win back the House, maybe win some seats in the Senate, and turn this thing around? How should they do that?
So I was the executive director of the House Dem Caucus in 2006 when we won back. I am eerily feeling the same way I felt in 2006 about 2026, 20 years later. The DNC is investing unprecedented amount of infrastructure, similar to the way that Howard Dean did in 2006. And so that means we're going to win in places that people never expected us to win. I think we're going to recruit the candidates, all the candidates. I've told folks you can't win a wave if you don't have somebody to ride it. So we're going to recruit candidates in all of these red districts. And that's going to be important. And the Republicans are going to overreach. That's what happened in 2006 election. George W. Bush and the Republicans who control the House and the Senate, they overreached. That is what Donald Trump is doing right now. So many of the same dynamics that we're seeing in 06, we're going to see in 2026, and Democrats are going to take advantage of it.
All right, Jamie Harrison with the prediction. Thank you so much for coming on, clearing some things up. Still ahead, you may have heard one of our very own, someone you